I woke up at 6 a.m. drenched in sweat, my shirt clinging to my back like a wet towel. The silence hit me first. No hum from the air conditioning. No buzz from the refrigerator. Nothing. My 8-year-old daughter, Emma, was already stirring in her bed, kicking off her covers and whimpering about how hot it was. Outside, the thermometer on my porch read 92 degrees. And it wasn't even 7 in the morning. The weather forecast had been screaming about a record-breaking heat wave all week with temperatures expected to hit 105 degrees. I stumbled to the electrical panel, hoping it was just a tripped breaker, but everything looked normal. My phone showed full bars, so the cell towers were fine. I called the power company's automated line, punching in my account number with growing dread. The cheerful recorded voice informed me that there were no reported outages in my area and my account was current. That's when my stomach dropped. If it wasn't a widespread outage and I'd paid my bills, why was my power out? I threw on some clothes and stepped outside into what felt like walking into an oven. The heat slammed into me with the force of a physical blow. Mrs. Henderson, next door, was watering her roses, her sprinkler system running perfectly fine. Her house hummed with the familiar sound of central air conditioning. Across the street, the Johnsons had their porch lights still on from the night before. Everyone else had power, just me. I've lived in Willow Creek Estates for 3 years now, ever since the divorce. It's one of those planned communities where every house looks like it was stamped from the same cookie cutter, and the HOA rules are thicker than a phone book. The monthly fees are steep, but I figured it was worth it for Emma to have a safe neighborhood with good schools. I keep to myself, maintain my property, and follow the rules. Or at least I thought I did. Recently, though, I'd been getting letters from the HOA about my electricity usage. Karen Mitchell, our HOA president, had apparently decided that the community needed to do its part for grid stability during peak summer months. She'd sent out notices about voluntary energy conservation, suggesting residents set their thermostats to 78 degrees or higher. I'd ignored most of it. My electric bill was my business, and I paid it on time every month. Karen Mitchell is exactly what you'd picture when someone says HOA president. She's in her mid-50s, drives a white SUV with multiple bumper stickers about property values, and treats the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. She's the type who measures your grass height with a ruler and sends violation notices if it's a quarter-inch too long. I'd had a few run-ins with her over minor things. My garbage cans being visible from the street an hour past pickup time. Emma's chalk art on our driveway being too colorful. But the energy conservation thing had escalated quickly. 2 weeks ago, she'd knocked on my door with a clipboard and a fake smile. She'd mentioned that my unit was drawing significantly more power than recommended and that I needed to be more mindful of community resources. I politely told her that I paid my electric bill and would manage my usage as I saw fit. Her smile had turned icy, and she'd made some comment about selfish residents who don't care about the greater good. Now, standing in my powerless house with the temperature climbing past 95 degrees, I was starting to piece things together. Emma was getting flushed and cranky, complaining that she felt dizzy. Heat exhaustion was no joke, especially for kids. I needed to get her somewhere cool fast. I grabbed Emma and headed to Mrs. Henderson's house. She's a sweet elderly lady who's lived here since the community was built. She welcomed us in immediately, her air conditioning providing blessed relief. While Emma cooled off with a glass of ice water, I explained what was happening. Mrs. Henderson's face grew concerned as I described waking up without power while everyone else still had theirs. "That's very strange, dear," she said, refilling Emma's glass. "Have you talked to anyone from the HOA maintenance crew? They were working around your block yesterday evening." My blood went cold. Working on what? I'm not sure exactly, but I saw their truck parked near your electrical meter around dinner time. Karen was with them, pointing at various houses. I thanked Mrs. Henderson for her help and called the power company again, this time demanding to speak to a human. After 20 minutes on hold, I finally got through to a customer service representative who checked my account thoroughly. Everything was in order on their end. No service interruptions, no maintenance scheduled, account current. But then she mentioned something that made my hands shake. "Sir, according to our records, your service was disconnected yesterday at 7:32 p.m. by a third-party contractor with proper authorization forms. It shows here that the disconnection was requested by your community's management company. I hung up and immediately called Karen Mitchell. She answered on the second ring, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Oh, hello there," she said, and I could practically hear her smirking through the phone. "Having some electrical issues today?" "Karen, did you have my power shut off?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Well, I did warn you about excessive usage during peak demand periods. The HOA has emergency authority to take necessary steps to protect community infrastructure. It's all outlined in Section 12-4 of the Community Guidelines." I was speechless for a moment. "You cut my power in the middle of a heat wave with a child in the house. Perhaps this will help you understand the importance of conservation." She replied with a tone that made my skin crawl. "Your usage was 30% above community average last month. That's simply unacceptable. Karen, it's going to be over 100 degrees today. My daughter could get heat stroke." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before ignoring my conservation requests. Your power will be restored once you sign an agreement to limit your usage to community standards." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there, phone in hand, realizing that our HOA president had just committed what was probably multiple crimes: cutting someone's utilities without proper notice, endangering a minor, abuse of authority. The list was growing by the minute. I called 911 first. The operator took my report seriously, especially when I mentioned that a child was involved and temperatures were forecast to reach dangerous levels. They said they'd send an officer out within the hour. Next, I contacted Channel 7 News, whose consumer advocacy segment had been covering HOA horror stories all summer. The reporter, Jessica Martinez, was immediately interested when I explained the situation. "Mr. Thompson, are you telling me that your HOA president had your electricity disconnected without notice during a heat emergency?" she asked. "That's exactly what I'm telling you. And I have a feeling I'm not the first person she's targeted." By noon, Officer Rodriguez had arrived to take my statement. He was a young guy, probably new to the force, but he took detailed notes and seemed genuinely concerned about the welfare issues involved. While we were talking, Mrs. Henderson came over with some interesting information. "Officer," she said, slightly out of breath from the heat, "I've been asking around the neighborhood. This isn't the first time Karen has done something like this. The Williams family, 3 streets over, had their water shut off last month for what Karen called excessive lawn watering, and the Patels had their cable disconnected because Karen decided their satellite dish was unsightly." Officer Rodriguez looked up sharply. "Do you have contact information for these families?" Within an hour, Jessica Martinez arrived with her camera crew. She interviewed me on camera with Mrs. Henderson's air-conditioned living room as a backdrop since my own house was approaching dangerous temperatures. The thermometer in my kitchen read 98 degrees, and it was still climbing. "This is a clear case of abuse of power," Jessica said during her stand-up segment. "HOA boards have limited authority, and disconnecting utilities without proper notice or due process appears to violate multiple state laws." The story aired on the 5 o'clock news with the headline, "HOA President Cuts Power During Heat Emergency." Within minutes, my phone was ringing with calls from neighbors I'd never spoken to, all sharing their own stories of Karen's overreach. The Patels confirmed that Karen had pressured the cable company to disconnect their service using some bogus aesthetic violation. The Williams family had indeed lost water service for 3 days after Karen claimed their sprinkler usage violated drought restrictions that didn't even exist in our county. By evening, a local attorney named David Kim had contacted me. He specialized in HOA disputes and tenant rights, and he was very interested in my case. "Mr. Thompson, what happened to you appears to be criminal, not just a civil matter," he explained over the phone. "Utility disconnection without proper notice is illegal. Doing it during a declared heat emergency, with a minor present, could constitute child endangerment. And if she's been targeting multiple residents this way, we might be looking at a pattern of harassment and abuse of authority." Attorney Kim agreed to represent me pro bono in exchange for the right to pursue a class action suit against Karen and the HOA board. He immediately filed for an emergency injunction to restore my power and sent formal demand letters to both Karen and the HOA management company. The next morning brought a knock at my door at 8 a.m. sharp. Officer Rodriguez was back, but this time he wasn't alone. Detective Sarah Park introduced herself and explained that they had a warrant to search HOA records, and interview Karen Mitchell. The local district attorney had reviewed my case overnight and decided there was probable cause for criminal charges. We take utility shutoffs very seriously, especially when children are involved, Detective Park explained. This appears to be way outside any legitimate HOA authority. We walked over to Karen's house together. She answered the door in her bathrobe, clearly not expecting company. Her confident smirk from yesterday was nowhere to be seen. Karen Mitchell, Detective Park asked, showing her badge. We have a warrant to search HOA maintenance, records, and electronic communications related to utility disconnections in this community. Karen's face went pale. I don't understand. I was acting within my authority as HOA president. Ma'am, we'll need to see documentation of that authority, along with all records of utility disconnections you've authorized. What they found in Karen's home office was damning. Email threads with a maintenance company discussing problem residents who needed to be brought into line. A spreadsheet tracking neighbors' utility usage with notes like too high, needs correction, and stubborn, escalate measures. Most shocking of all, an email from the HOA's own legal counsel warning Karen that she had no authority to disconnect utilities and that doing so could result in criminal charges. The legal counsel's email was dated 2 weeks before my power was cut. Karen had received explicit legal advice that what she was planning was illegal, and she'd done it anyway. Detective Park read through the emails with growing amazement. Mrs. Mitchell, did you receive this email from your attorney warning you not to disconnect utilities? Karen's lawyerly mask was crumbling fast. I was protecting the community's interests. These people were being selfish and wasteful. Ma'am, you're going to need to come with us. The arrest happened right there on Karen's front porch, with half the neighborhood watching from their windows and doorways. Detective Park read Karen her rights while Officer Rodriguez placed her in handcuffs. Karen's protests about HOA authority and community standards fell on deaf ears. You're under arrest for unlawful utility disconnection, child endangerment, harassment, and abuse of authority, Detective Park announced. You have the right to remain silent. Karen's face shifted from confusion to rage to panic as the reality hit her. This is ridiculous. I'm the HOA president. I was protecting property values. Ma'am, HOA presidents don't have the authority to cut people's utilities. Officer Rodriguez replied as they walked toward the police car. That's illegal regardless of your position. The sight of Karen Mitchell being led away in handcuffs sent shockwaves through Willow Creek Estates. This was a woman who had terrorized residents for years, with petty violations and power trips. And now she was facing real consequences. Neighbors came out of their houses, some looking satisfied, others appearing genuinely shocked. My power was restored within 2 hours of Karen's arrest. The utility company, eager to avoid any liability issues, sent a crew out immediately with full apologies. Emma and I finally got to cool off in our own home again. 3 days later, Attorney Kim called with an update. The district attorney is moving forward with all charges. Karen's facing up to 2 years in prison for the child endangerment charge alone, plus additional time for the utility interference and harassment charges. The fines could reach $50,000. But the legal troubles were just the beginning of Karen's downfall. The HOA board held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to remove her as president. Her employer, a local real estate company, terminated her after the arrest made the news. The State Real Estate Commission was reviewing her license due to the criminal charges. Within a week, 5 other families had joined Attorney Kim's class action lawsuit against Karen personally. The HOA's insurance company was balking at covering her actions, claiming they fell outside legitimate HOA business. Karen was looking at potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal judgments and attorney fees. The final blow came 2 weeks later when Karen was formally sentenced. She pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for avoiding jail time, but still faced 18 months of supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, and $25,000 in fines and restitution. Standing in the courtroom, her hands shaking as the judge read the sentence, Karen Mitchell looked nothing like the confident HOA tyrant who had cut my power. She was just a middle-aged woman who had let a little bit of authority go completely to her head, and now she was paying the price for it. When the judge's gavel fell, Karen's shoulders sagged in defeat. and she whispered, $25,000. In disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend how her power trip had cost her so much. Willow Creek Estates felt different after that, like a weight had lifted. Neighbors started waving more, sharing stories over fences instead of hiding from violation notices. Emma even drew a chalk picture on our driveway, a sun with a big red X through it, and a note that said, "No more hot mean lady." For the first time in years, our cookie-cutter community felt a little less suffocating.